The views and opinions on this show do not necessarily reflect the views of ESPN Tucson 1490 AM, 94.9 HD Channel 4, or the Arizona Lotus Corporation.
Spears and Ali, weekday morning 7 to 9 on 1490 AM, 94.9 HD4 ESPN Tucson.
Not in time. They pulled off the shot. We're going to overtime. And Mr. Backer, you're quite prophetic.
Spears and Ali overtime coming at you on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Please subscribe, rate, and comment. Spears and Ali today. We are presented by Tucson Federal Credit Union, the Volpe team at Nova Home Loans, and Right Way Heating, Cooling, and Plumbing. And my goodness, Ali, we got a special guest today.
Yeah, well, all our show sponsors are first-round picks, if not going to number one overall. But we're doing pretty good with our guests. Not bad going in the second round.
Yes, sir. Eben Britton, former Arizona Wildcats, former NFL offensive lineman, podcast host, joining us here on Spears and Ali. Eben, man, it's an honor to have you on Spears and Ali Overtime. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, dude, thank you, man. It's an honor for me to be here.
So next week, we got the NFL draft coming up. Before we talk about that, the process of what it was like getting drafted, playing in the NFL, maybe your thoughts on Arizona football. Tell the folks about what you've been up to nowadays. What's talk about the latest adventures with Eben Britton?
Where do I start there? It's funny because I was thinking about, we've been in communication for a little while now. I think, Justin, you've been hitting me up. I apologize if I haven't ever responded or haven't responded fast enough to get something on the books. I'm excited we have the chance now. Since, life after football has been quite a ride, that's for sure. I was thinking about it this morning, and some days I forget that I even played football, to be honest with you, which is hilarious. And part of my message to the guys being drafted today or next week, I mean, these guys that are thinking about that and they're on this ride, and it's exciting, man. It's an exciting moment in your life to realize this dream that, for me, when I was 8 years old, that vision was planted in my mind of playing in the NFL. And from the moment I stepped on the football field my freshman year of high school, it was just like a rocket ship to the moon of how I lived, how I breathed, how I carried myself. Was all in accordance of achieving that dream of climbing to the top of that mountain. And it was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. And I know how much hard work it costs to realize that dream. And I remember the week leading up to the draft for me was so surreal, watching ESPN and, be out with buddies and at Champs or wherever we might have been. Champs, I don't think Champs exists anymore.
No.
Yeah.
They're in box store heaven with Bed Bath and Beyond.
Yeah. So we were at Champs or on 4th somewhere, and ESPN would be on, and they'd be showing mock drafts and all kinds of stuff, and it's a surreal experience. It's a surreal experience, and honor it, acknowledge it for yourselves. To all the young men who are on that trip, man, take it in, take it all in, recognize how much hard work you've put in for yourself. And this is the thing, is that which has been much of my life after football, is remember that you're a human being too, man. And I know that message goes in one ear and out the other. It certainly did for me. And I'll say it anyway, because some guys will hear it. Remember that you're a human being. Remember why you play the game. For me, playing football was all about, I loved that I got the opportunity to break a person, to totally dominate a person and be celebrated for it each and every play. And I would say that mentality is what got me to the NFL. I was always the most violent dude on the field. When I stepped on the field, I was the most violent, vicious, fast. I was the lineman on tape running down in front of the running back, running down, picking receivers up off the field, knocking safeties off the pile. Like, that was my mentality, and it took me a really long way. And it really destroyed me too, because I didn't have another gear. And so taking the message of how do you make use of the message of I'm a human being outside of the game as a young man who's chasing a dream, how do you make use of that message in real time in your football career? Take it from a guy who struggled to learn this message from veterans who were playing 9, 10 plus years in the NFL. Take your time, learn how to practice, learn how to take it slow, learn how to take good care of your body. I think now, 15 plus years since my days playing, which is crazy. I mean, we're a decade since my last season in the NFL.
Wow.
I played 6 years, which is nuts. The 10 years from my last football season is wild to me when I say that, when I put that into words. I think our understanding of how to take care of our bodies has exponentially evolved. And so take good care of your body, take it slow in practice, take your time, become a technician, be super disciplined with your technique, and learn how to manage your energy and your power. Learn how to use it when it's needed and when it's not needed. And God bless every one of the guys going into the draft. Jordan Morgan repping the number 77. I'd love to see that. I've loved his game. I've loved watching him develop over the years. Take it slow, learn how to manage your power, take good care of your body, learn from the vets, and just enjoy it, man. Enjoy it, because it's gone in an instant. It's a moment, it's an instant, and it's all of a sudden you're 10 years out of your career and you forget that you played football some days,
Yeah.
And so on that note, I've been up to a number of things, namely podcasting, sharing my experience coming out of football, life in transition, dealing with pain, dealing with overcoming adversity, learning about who I am as a man underneath the pads without the armor. Who am I? Who is Eben, the man who shows up with his family, with his friends, and his relationships, and his purpose? Who is that guy? What does he look like? How does he move and carry himself? And that journey has taken many forms. I've done a handful of podcasts, which have been a lot of fun. Started with The Mindful Warrior, which was a podcast with another ex-NFL guy named Nate Jackson, who played 6 years as tight end for the Broncos. That evolved into my time at Hot Boxing with Mike Tyson, starting that podcast, doing that show for probably 100 plus episodes. And then from there to the Ebb and Flow, going back to my roots in yoga. Some people know this about me, but my mom was taking me to yoga classes from the time I was 10 years old, and it was a huge part of my injury-free career, at least through college. And then, honestly, I started dealing with injuries and stopped doing the yoga, which I think was only a detriment to my football career. But came back to yoga after football, had a handful of really important mentors, men that showed me the way, guys who had experiences working with special forces and, the military, and former professional athletes, and guys who could just say, Ed, the journey's about coming back to yourself at the end of the day. Like, who are you underneath all the stuff,
Yep.
and finding my way through that, one day at a time, and trying to be a positive influence as best I can in any way I can that is revealed to me. So I mean, it's been a lot. There's a lot happened in the last decade. Coming out of football is no joke. That's another thing that goes in one ear and out the other, especially when you get into the NFL and everybody around you saying, you know what it stands for, not for long.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Hey, Evan, speaking of that, I'm curious, especially with, just high caliber football players like you that played at the highest level. I mean, look, I think you probably played Pop Warner, you played high school, you're playing for Arizona, your second team all Pac-12 in 2008, your first team 2009. And then the thing you've been thinking about since maybe you were 6 years old, I just got drafted to the fucking NFL. What was your moment where you're like, holy shit, I'm in the NFL?
That came during that first mini camp when, I mean, my fucking head was spinning, dude. I'd been playing tackle my entire life. I get drafted to Jacksonville. And, honestly, it was this thing in me, there wasn't a whole lot of humility. Maybe you guys have dug up the old footage or heard the tales of my draft day, which we could talk about if we want, but
Would love to.
Yes.
we got so there wasn't a whole lot of humility in me because I just believed it was who I was and what I was going to do. So the getting to the NFL part was for me in my mind was this sure thing. The realization hit of the gravity of what that actually meant in my first mini camp when they said, "Hey, Eb, we're going to have you start playing guard and tackle." And I had to learn both positions. An NFL playbook is, this thick, and there's nuances all over the place. And there's 25 different pass protections. There's 50 ways to run power. There's infinite ways to run trap, zone, inside, outside, everything in between. Who's pulling here? Somebody's going there. And my head was just fucking spinning. I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do here? And mini camp and OTAs, truly, my first mini camp and OTAs, I was so humbled that I thought to myself, surely everyone in this building is thinking, holy shit, we drafted a dud, 39th overall. Like, we
Wow.
drafted this guy and I was like, everybody's got to be thinking this guy's going to be one of those stories. What happened to him? He was drafted 39th overall.
You had imposter syndrome.
I was just like, I don't know which way to go. Every play, you could see my head on film. My head's just like this. Every single play in my stance because I'm like, where am I going? Hey, what am I doing? I had no idea what I was doing. I was drowning.
Yeah.
Got through OTAs. As I do, I work my ass off. I was always a grinder in the weight room. That was my happy place. I would grind my ass off in the weight room, work my ass off in the weight room, off the field stuff. Started studying the playbook. We had our break before training camp, and I just made this decision during that break. I said, by the end of training camp, I'm going to be the starting right tackle by whatever means necessary. And when I showed up to training camp, I just took every single practice as this opportunity to get better. Okay, today I'm going to work on my punch. Today I'm going to just focus on every play. I'm going to be assignment correct. I'm going to be dialed in on my assignment. Okay, today we're working on feet. I'm going to really get into my feet, get into my technique, my footwork. And by the end of training camp, I was starting. I think by the last preseason game, I had earned that starting spot at right tackle. And, went on to have a really, really phenomenal rookie season. starting at right tackle, and you know, it was really about my mindset, and that mindset of looking at football, shifting from football being this proving ground, as it were, because now you're in the NFL. I mean, even in college, to some degree, there's varying levels of talent and desire, right? I mean, you're playing against some guys who are great athletes. You're playing against some guys who are really good players. You're playing against some guys who are not necessarily physical specimens, but they've got the desire and the will and play with great technique. And some guys honestly just don't belong there at all. That happens, and it happens in the NFL too. And for various reasons. And then you get to the NFL, and it's pretty damn clear that this is the best of the best. These are all the best guys who are playing in college football. They got sifted up to this next level. And so there's not going to be, you're going to have the blocks. I mean, there's plenty of plays where I'm flat backing guys in the NFL because of great technique, because of finishing, because of tenacity, because of positioning, all of those things. But it's not really just going to be a taking physical dominance over another human at that level. It's really about perfecting your craft, getting really disciplined with your technique and your approach to the game and looking at it as your art form, And so, that was the shift that needed to take place for me, of getting out of, not necessarily, football never came easy. I don't think it comes easy to anybody. But if you're physically gifted and you've got the desire and a certain type of psychological makeup where you enjoy inflicting damage, I think that's a requirement at all levels. You enjoy inflicting damage, and frankly, you enjoy sustaining damage and receiving punishment, and you're good at it. When you get to that next level, it really becomes, who are the artists in the room? Who are the people that approach the game of football now as a craft, as a discipline, almost as a samurai? This is a martial art, especially in the trenches. It's martial arts, in armor. And so who spends more time honing their craft, their martial art, are the guys who are going to play for 10 plus years. And then, there's some luck, and there's a lot of taking good care of yourself. You got to really take good care of yourself. And that gets hard when you start getting injured. Going into my second year, God, I was the fucking, sorry for cursing. I was the golden.
This is why we do overtime.
This is the
cussing part of it.
I mean, overly, sometimes a little gratuitously by Justin here, but yes, it's organic. It's cool.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Well, going into my second season, OTAs, man, I was the golden child. Could do no wrong. Was at the top of my game. Had spent the entire offseason training with my old strength coach from high school, little Nigerian Olympian power lifter named Moji Olua. Shout out to Moji. And I was as explosive, powerful, fleet-footed as I had ever been in my career, in the best shape of my life. Could do no wrong. Superstar of the OTAs, honestly. And last weight workout, before going into our break before training camp, I ruptured the disc in my back. L5S1, which was it was a defining moment in my football career, that I was never really the same player after that. It happened doing these air squat, these like air pressure, these Kaiser machine squats, and created devastating sciatic nerve pain down my right leg, atrophied my whole right leg, had no power in my right side. Here I am playing right tackle, and it's a Herculean effort to move to my left. And I spent pretty much the rest of my career managing that issue. And it gets hard, man. It gets when you're injured, you're just constantly behind the 8 ball in football because there's no time to truly recover, especially when you have a catastrophic injury like that.
Yeah.
And you can come back from anything. I mean, I had it fixed, had a discectomy. So one flash forward, I attempted to play through it my second year, which was a complete grind up at 5 o'clock in the morning in the training room by 5:45, 6 in the hot tub, cold tub, getting stim machines, getting massage, doing ab core work, doing everything I possibly could to get myself ready to go each and every day. Was popping all sorts of a whole cocktail of stuff before games to get out on the field. Had to wear a back brace just to keep everything tight and secure. And an absolute blessing was midway through the season, week 6 or 7, we're playing the Kansas City Chiefs, and I dislocate my shoulder twice in one game. We're on this outside zone play. Chiefs are playing this 3-4 defense. I punch up through the 4-eye, working up to the linebacker, and my legs get tied up in this wave of bodies. I go to the ground, land on my elbow at a right angle. Feel something sort of click, come up and realize that my shoulder's out of the socket. I pop it back in. I just like throw it back in.
Just like that. Yeah, just throw it back.
You know, saying it's crazy, but it's exactly what I did. I just threw it right back in. We finished the drive. I run off. I get to the sideline. I look at the trainer. I go, "Hey, brother, I just dislocated my shoulder. I need a harness ASAP." So he's like looking at me like, "What?" And I say, "Dude, hurry the fuck up. We're about to go into our 2-minute drill in about 3 minutes. We're going to get the ball back. We're going to be in a 2-minute drill. It's in Kansas City. It's loud as fuck. It's crazy atmosphere, dude. Craziest atmosphere I've ever played in." He runs back with a harness, throw the shoulder pads off, strap me up with this thing, throw the shoulder pads back on. By the time I'm grabbing my helmet, we're running back out for the 2-minute drill. Get out there, second play of the 2-minute drill. I'm pass blocking Mike Vrabel. Go to punch. He swipes my arm. It goes down, comes out of the socket again.
Oh.
Now I can't get it back in because the harness is holding it out. So I run off the field, tapping my helmet. My backup runs on. I sit on the bench, and it takes 3 or 4 team doctors about 3.5 minutes to get my shoulder back in the socket. They're like, "Eb, can we get you inside? We can lay you on a table and we have a technique." I'm like, "Fuck that, get it in." We like grind it in. And
hey, by the way, man, way to be a team player and not force your team to take a timeout. You went off the field.
Oh, dude, I just ran off.
You can't lay on the field.
It was pretty epic, man. I mean, it just came out and I was like, "Oh shit, I can't get it back in this time." Run off the field, tapping my helmet. Guy runs back on. Jeez. They say, Eb, you're done for the day. Let's get you showered up, put you in some sweats, just give you some pain meds. It's like, all right. And the whole time I'm thinking to myself, I'll be ready for next week. The injury was really started my sophomore year of high school. My right shoulder would subluxate. It would slide in and out of the socket 2 to 3 times a season. And I had a pretty solid protocol for dealing with that. And so finally, it was just so, the labrum was so worn away. It was about a 260-degree tear. Your labrum's just like this little disc of cartilage that sits there, that your the humerus of your arm bone just sort of slides in like that, And so it had been worn away, 260-degree tear. So after the game, I'm thinking to myself, I'll be good to go for next week, no doubt about it. I'm not worried about it. And the team doctor called me into his office and just said, Eb, I got to put you on IR. You need to have season-ending shoulder surgery. You can't play the rest of the season. I just totally burst into tears. It was the first time in my career ever that I was so injured I couldn't play. I'd never missed a game in my career. There was some crazy stat when I got drafted that the Jags were really proud of, that I wasn't even aware of, honestly. But I had I'm sure you guys could probably look this up or find it somewhere, but I had 2,000 plus snaps without a penalty, and however many games consecutive games played that I'd never missed.
Wow.
And so it was the first time in my career I'd been sat down by an injury, and it was a blessing because got the shoulder fixed. Right shoulder's never been better, honestly. Left shoulder's a little bit of a mess. We do what we can managing that. I'm looking to avoid surgery on the left shoulder, but who knows? But it gave me an opportunity to rest the back injury and get a handle on the sciatic nerve pain. I was getting epidurals, which, if you have sciatic nerve pain, I do not recommend epidurals. They're a fucking waste of time. They do nothing for you. They did nothing for me.
There's a lot of pregnant women out there that need to hear that.
That was my experience.
I got to ask you this before. I want to ask you about what it takes to stay, or at least what the NFL used to have to do, players, with respect to the pharmaceuticals. But you go to your first training camp, going back there, and I'm kind of an NFL nerd, but you got there's a first training camp where you're lining up against John Henderson, who's I think he was 30 years old at the time, and just and good. I know you were, football players were the best and nobody can beat us, but what's going through your mind when you look at this human being and you're like, oh my God, I'm going to block him? And then what was the moment, whether it's a training camp or your first season when you're starting at right tackle, that you're like, man, I belong here. Like, I am good enough to be here. Or was that a feeling that you took into it from the beginning?
No, it's a great question. It's a great question. First of all, yeah, you're lining up against Big John Henderson, and you're like, holy shit, I've never seen a bigger human being in my life.
Yeah.
John's head's like this big. Amazing dude, like big jolly dude, amazing guy. And when I was in college, that video was going viral, however that was, because I guess it was on Facebook or something. But the video of John in the training room getting slapped before going out to games, that video was going viral when I was in college. So then I find myself and I'm his teammate, and I'm like, holy shit, dude. But that's the thing, you go in, you get your ass kicked. You get fucking clubbed and swum, and you're like, what happened? What even just happened? The whole world's spinning. You're just like, what? I don't even know what just happened there. I just got completely dominated. You get your ass kicked, and then you workshop it. You workshop it in the O-line cave. You watch film. You talk it out with vets who have learned how to be successful, who have learned how to play against dudes like John or other there's so many good guys. I mean, when I was playing, it was crazy. But so, you learn and you go, okay, so I line up, I put my hand in the dirt, Big John lines up over me. What can I control? I can control my technique. I can control my punch. I can control where my feet go, where my hands go. Let me lean into the technique. Let me get out of the mind noise of, holy shit, this is a massive superhuman in front of me, and get into the moment by moment technique, discipline that I need to do to be successful on this play. I don't have to dominate John here to be successful. If I can just get good hand placement, get my feet in the ground, move him 3 inches to the right, keep my body in front of him so that the running back has just enough hole to come off my ass. Dude, that's a victory on that play. So that's part of that thing, that new realization, like I was talking about earlier. You're not going to be just out there dominating guys. Like, what's a win now? A win is something different. A win is great body position, using great technique. Maybe you move the guy 6 inches and give your running back just enough space to cut the crease and take it where he needs to go. Or you pass pro just long enough for your quarterback to get the ball off. So that's that shift in what's a successful block now. Because in college there was definitely, especially my last year there was definitely an elevated, not so much stress, but expectation that every play I'm going to dominate a guy. I'm going to just dominate somebody on every single play. And then the feeling of I belong here. My first start as a rookie in 2009, my teammate Eugene Monroe, he was drafted in the first round. I was drafted in the second round, and we were the first rookie tackle tandem to start in the NFL in a really long time. And we gave up 0 sacks to Dwight Freeney and Robert Mathis of the Indianapolis Colts, two of the best pass rushers perhaps in the history of the game. These
One
guys.
was a Hall of Fame, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they both should be in the Hall at some point. I mean, is Dwight in there already?
Yeah, I think Dwight's in, and Mathis, he's been like kind of talked about. He's like top 20.
Yeah.
He should be in at some point. Those guys were, I mean, I'm a Steelers guy, not as great as James Harrison and Lamar Woodley, but they're really good.
Those guys were great too, man. I mean, no, absolutely. Different. I mean, because those guys,
James Harrison, like what? I mean, we can get into that later, but like,
James Harrison was another beast. I fortunately never went against him. But,
right.
but Robert and Dwight revolutionized the spin move. I mean, their spin move was like a teleportation. It was like they disappeared in a moment. And they did that. They made a lot of guys look bad. And first start ever, 0 sacks. And I remember after the game, we lost the game like 14-12. This was Peyton Manning days too. It was the Jags Colts games were epic always. It was a big rivalry for us. So our first game was in Lucas Oil Stadium. Might have been like the third year Lucas Oil was open. They were playing there. Peyton Manning, Robert Mathis, Dwight Freeney. We gave up 0 sacks. After the game, Trey Thomas, who was a 14-year vet, left tackle for the Eagles, they had signed him to be a mentor for Eugene and me, essentially. And after the game on the airplane, I remember, I was just I was like, I hadn't even thought about it, but I was just happy to have gotten through my first game, gotten my first game under my belt, and felt like, I don't know what that's going to look like on film, but I'm proud of myself for showing up and giving it everything I had and going out there and competing. And and after the game, Trey Thomas was almost giggling. He was like, "Man, rookies starting first game ever against those guys, 0 sacks, 0 sacks." Like, he was so proud of us.
That's
I love that.
magnificent.
I love that.
And I thought to myself, okay, Trey's really proud of us then. I feel like did something there. Maybe I do belong here, So that's a great memory that I have of, recognizing that I definitely belonged there, and I knew that I could do this thing. I think earning the starting spot too was a big deal because I put
Yeah.
that in my mind, and I set out to do that, and I had just an unbelievable training camp. Probably looking at my entire football career, every season I had ever played, high school, college, NFL, that was the best training camp I had ever had, and it was all because of my mindset.
Yep.
There wasn't a day that I was dreading it, I went out every single day with a purpose. And I think that's the struggle for many of us when we're playing is like training camp's a bitch, man. It's a beast, you know? It's uncomfortable. It's hard work. It's the hardest work we put in the season. It's the time to prepare yourself for war, really. You're preparing your body for it. And for me, the shift in mindset from just going through the motions, because we can get into that, we get into just, okay, let's just get these practices in. Let's just, all right, and you have that, there's that background noise of dread of like, fuck, we got to be here, especially as you get older as a vet. So to have that focus, to be able to shift your mindset into, I'm going to take every day one day at a time, one practice at a time, one meeting at a time, as an opportunity for me to get better. And man, you will change as a player.
Eben, take us back to when you were coming out of high school. You have East Coast roots. I believe your family's from New York, but you went to high school in California. And then you went to the University of Arizona. What was your recruitment like, and why did you decide to play for Mike Stoops in Arizona, and how do you reflect on your U of A career?
Yeah, so I guess it was around my junior year, before my junior season. I can't remember, but I started getting scholarship offers, and Arizona was the first school that offered me. And I ended up getting, offers from the whole Pac-10 at the time. It's crazy. That shit's gone.
R.I.P.
Yeah.
R.I.P. man.
R.I.P. Pac-10, Pac-12.
The whole Pac-10. I had Oklahoma, Tennessee, LSU. I had a serious list of schools to pick from, and I remember when I got the first scholarship offer, and I didn't even know that was a thing. I didn't know that colleges would, like, I knew my dad was a D1 basketball player. He got a scholarship to play at St. Francis in New York, and then transferred to JU, Jacksonville University, actually, which was an interesting,
How ironic.
interesting full circle thing. But so my dad was a D1 basketball player, and so I had a vague idea about what football could provide me with opportunity wise as far as my education went. But I wasn't it was a light bulb moment getting that first scholarship offer and going, "Oh, wow, they're going to pay for me to go to school. They're going to, essentially pay for me to go to school to play football." I hadn't really realized that was a thing. And at that point, I mean, Rivals was just kind of becoming a thing, and it wasn't anything like it is today. Today's just madness.
Yeah.
I think there's still some work to do. I'm not sure that all this stuff is so good, is in the best interest of the athletes. I think undoubtedly the guys deserve more money than we were getting. But to the extent that it is now, I think it's a little bit of the Wild West and kind of making a mess of things and making a mess of people, to be honest. Young guys who are, I mean, dude, I was 21 when I got drafted in the NFL. And when I got that paycheck, it was the most money anybody in my family had ever received at one time. And I had no idea what to do with it at 21. Now guys are 18 to, I know because of COVID, some of these guys are like 26 in their last year of football.
Yeah.
Which is nuts. And why not? Why wouldn't you stay in college for 7 years if you're getting paid $1 million a year to play? Anyway, that aside, I took a handful of visits. UCLA, USC, was doing the thing, getting courted, which was exciting, man. It was fun as a kid. You're like, oh shit, I'm something here. I'm something to be reckoned with, And went to U of A. I think Coach Stoops and Charlie Williams and Eric Wolford. Charlie was the receivers coach. Awesome dudes, man. I love Coach Mike to this day as well, Mike Stoops. I think one of the biggest mistakes that was made in the program over the last 15 years was firing Mike, because I think
you have a plenty to choose from. I can give you a couple of more big mistakes.
Yeah, no doubt. Let's do another pod on that.
It's like we've got a lot to choose. If you're like big mistakes with Arizona football, there's a panoply.
Yeah, I know. It's one of the struggles with it, isn't it? It's like one of the things you're like, man, if we could just get over that thing, whatever it is, that psychological breakdown that causes those types of decisions to be made, I think Arizona could be a hell of a football program. And I mean, look, dude, last year I thought what an incredible season. Loved seeing that. I think Jed Fish, I knew who he was when he got hired, and so I'm not surprised he went to Washington. That being said, he blew my mind pulling together that team last year. And I was really proud to see that. And I'm stoked for this new guy. I mean, hey, he's a U of A guy. He gets it. He understands what it is. I think that's what we've needed. We need somebody who really understands what the program is, what Tucson is about, that underdog mentality. I think Dick Tomey really started that culture. And I think Mike Stoops brought something that was really special to Arizona. And I just loved Mike, man. I loved Mike. I loved Coach Wolford. I loved Charlie Williams. I came to U of A for this like junior day camp. The next day, my dad and I drove up to Phoenix, met with ASU. Oh.
Yeah.
But after the meeting with ASU, my dad and I were at dinner, and I was like, man, Arizona feels like the place. Feels like the place for me. They had creative writing as a major, and one of the best creative writing programs in the world.
That's right.
And somehow in high school, I got the idea that I wanted to major in creative writing. Always been a writer. Love telling stories. That's definitely evolved into my podcasting and using my voice. And I wrote a book back in 21, The Ebb and Flow: Basic Tools to Transform Your Life. But so they had what I was looking for. It felt right to me. Something about it just felt right in my body. And I made the commitment and still had Cal and Oklahoma were still trying to to steal me.
Yeah, the other Stu's brother trying to get you.
Yeah. I guess Mike had to call Bob and say, "Yo, dude, back the fuck up." And Oregon was always, they would send me the Wheaties box with my picture on it and all kinds of crazy stuff like that, and it was a lot of fun. But Arizona it felt right in my body. I wanted to be a part of an underdog. I wanted to be a part of a team. I wanted to be on the team that brought the program back to bowl games. I wanted to fucking do my best to get us to a Rose Bowl. We left the Pac-12, the only team that never went to a Rose Bowl, which is a bummer. But so I really wanted to be a part of building something. And by my last year, we had a hell of a team, man. I mean, we went 8-5, beat BYU in the Vegas Bowl. It was a huge season for us. I feel like we set the tone for bringing Arizona back to being this hard-nosed, competitive team that was going to kick your ass. If they won the game or not, you were going to feel it the next day, And I was really proud of that. I mean, loved my time at Arizona. Honestly, I mean, some of the best years ever, I mean, there's been a lot of good years of life since, and a lot of great things have happened. I've been very blessed, and I look back on my time at Arizona and just love every bit of it. We had a great group of people, great guys on the team. We overcame a shitload. We grew a ton. We went from being maybe 3-8 to 8-5, during the time I was there, and had a lot of talent. I mean, Gronk, Rob came in that point, which, I mean, he was a paradigm shifting player. Hosted him on his recruiting trip. That was a trip.
I was going to say, your reasons to come to Arizona is a little bit different than Gronk, because Gronk has said it like, yeah, I went on my visit and I told my dad, like, Dad, they got pool parties in February. I got to come.
Yeah, bro. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, love Gronk for that, man. And we had a great group of guys. I mean, Mike Thomas, who was in my class. We had a great class my year. Mike Thomas, Blake Curley, whole O-line was my year, 1 year. It was like a 3-year window of a really solid that made up that O-line crew. And Nick Grigsby, Willie Tuitama, Nick Foles came in and was Willie's backup. But the throwing Samoan, man, he was the real deal. I mean, and I still stay in touch with a handful of those guys today. And, some of the best dudes I've ever met in my life, some of my best friends.
Is it true that Rob Gronkowski would party and then would like sleep in the locker room? Like, you guys would come in the facility the next day or whatever, and he was just like asleep near his locker. So he partied a lot.
Sure, that happened. Oh yeah. He never missed a workout. I mean, Rob was one of the hardest working dudes. Fucking goofball to the end. But Rob never missed a workout. Worked his ass off in practice, in the weight room. Knew how to play. I mean, just the guy. Yeah, I mean, whatever you want to say about his partying, his love for partying. I mean, who doesn't love a good time? But he never let that never affected his play, his work ethic. The guy never missed a workout. He was, he did that. He did that every day. So no doubt, there were probably many instances where Rob was found sleeping on a couch in the locker room.
Yeah. It's between you and Rob, you guys 365. You got the whole year covered, sleeping on a couch in the locker room. Right? Yeah. Eben,
366 this year.
366. You were talking about the struggles of your second year and the injuries, and the things he had to do to get on the field and play. And one of those things, is kind of like the pharmaceuticals, the different opioids that the NFL was using more predominantly, I think, then than they are now. And,
Yeah.
kind of quietly, you don't hear about players getting suspended for use of marijuana. And so the NFL, I think they've basically taken that out of the drug testing protocol.
Yeah.
Do you think that the NFL, since the 9 years that you played, has evolved in how they deal with injuries and pain management?
It really seems like it. And one of the things that you guys may or may not know is that coming out of my football career, I was very heavily involved in cannabis advocacy, talking about cannabis as medicine for football players as an alternative to opiates, and its benefits as a remedy for concussions and as a neuroprotectant and antioxidant. So the molecules in the cannabis plant can literally protect your brain cells by forming this foamy protective layer over your brain cells, which protects them from the concussive injuries. And also it helps flush out the cocktail of chemicals that arises when you've had a concussion, all the inflammation that occurs after you've had a concussion. When you have a concussion, your brain, it gets rattled in your skull, and that concussion is literally your brain hitting the inside wall of your skull and a bruise occurring. And so this whole chemical cascade occurs of your body going into emergency mode to heal and stabilize the brain. But when that stuff sits in there for a long time, it becomes really toxic, and you develop this stuff called tau proteins, which is one of the things they're finding on brains with CTE. And so THC in particular can help flush that out, flush that chemical cocktail out of the brain faster. THC also has been found to remove tau proteins from brain cells. So whatever we want to say about the cannabis plant, whether you believe it or not, there's a lot of science, and the federal government actually has patents on cannabis as medicine, as neuroprotectants and antioxidants. So I did a lot of speaking on that coming out of my football career, which, was probably to my detriment as far as a lot of relationships I had go. Although, many of the people I've reconnected with in life after football, coaches and teammates, have all said how awesome it is. And not only that, I had a team doctor from one of the teams I played for in the NFL call me up and say, Eb, I think what you're doing with this cannabis advocacy is amazing. It was actually the reason I got connected to Mike Tyson. But he said, I'm really looking at CBD and how to use cannabis therapeutically for these guys. I've stopped prescribing opiates, and because I just see the damage that it's causing. And I think that, that has certainly evolved since I left the game, for good reason. I've written about it, spoken about it. My experience with opiates was not a good one. I mean, I was prescribed Vicodin after my shoulder surgery. I was experiencing severe withdrawal symptoms after 3 days of prescribed use.
Wow.
Waking up at 2:00 in the morning with a knifing sensation in my gut, cold sweats, chills, discomfort all over my body, anxiety, rage, just shit that is not helpful when you're trying to recover from a traumatic injury like that. Like, your body has experienced trauma. You've been in a car wreck. You've experienced physical trauma to your tissues. So your body's doing all this work to heal the damage that's occurred. So then you're taking this medication that's prescribed by a medical professional, a doctor, that's supposed to help deal with the pain, but it's putting your body into a more stressed state. So you're pumping all sorts of stress hormones, adrenaline and cortisol, things that are literally the opposite of what your body needs to heal. Our nervous system functions between two poles, the sympathetic nervous system, which is fight, flight, and then the parasympathetic nervous system, which is rest, digest, recover, detoxify, all the things we need to recover and rest. And so when you take an opiate, you're literally putting yourself into fight or flight, which inhibits you from doing anything to recover and heal. So I think that knowledge has become pretty well circulated, at least. And I was in a, I mean, there's tons of, I think the messaging around opiates and especially the fentanyl thing is really scary these days, especially if you have a kid in middle school or high school. It's just, the stuff is in anything, it's in everything. Somehow, God knows why, during my career, that was like fentanyl was like starting to kind of whisper in the atmosphere. You'd hear guys who'd get fentanyl or whatever it might have been. I never touched it, but it's a scary thing. Opiates are a fucking scary drug, man. Vicodin, Percocet, Oxycontin. I did it all. None of it worked for me as far as reducing pain. They all put me into a more heightened state of stress. And so throughout my football career, especially in the NFL, cannabis was really my medicine of choice when it came to pain relief. So I did a lot of speaking and about that, and I feel like I'm in better shape coming out of my football career because of that cannabis use than had I not used it, if I had just gone the conventional route. By my last year in Chicago, or my last 2 years in Chicago, I wasn't taking any opiates ever again when it came to dealing with an injury.
Well, the good news is, Andrew, your brain is well protected.
Thank you.
I bet it is.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mom.
So good job.
Eben, did you consume cannabis while playing football? Like, did you play a game while high?
Probably. Yeah, most likely.
He plays the fifth.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where, what I had was a vape pen at that time. That was the best thing I had access to. And so, take a couple puffs in the hotel room before you get on the bus. But by the time you get to the game, not really high anymore, So if I had been playing on an edible, that might have been a different story.
Well, things have changed. I mean, we talk about now, 100 years ago, they were using leeches like for so many things and taking cocaine. I think that's the way we're going to think about. We actually gave people these opioids.
I agree.
I think it's going to be kind of the same thing. As a football player, as an athlete, we could be sitting in our office or doing something, and all of a sudden a memory will flash from our playing days, and it just kind of reoccurring. Is there one or two that you just every once in a while you're like, oh man, I remember that battle with that guy. That was an incredible game. Or, maybe not you, because you went 37 games without a penalty, but I missed that block and Jay Cutler got crushed,
So you're saying memories of plays that I'm still pissed about, or that I felt
either
like,
one, man. They go both ways, right? Sometimes we think about the things that we did and just, it's like, man, if I could have just done that, I was so close to being successful. And other times it's a better memory. It's like, man,
I never, football's such the ultimate team game that I don't have any thoughts like, man, if I had made that block, we would have won that game. I definitely have memories of things that we were playing up in Oregon State, and trigger warning because I'm about to curse big time. We're up there, we're playing Oregon State. Oregon State was another rival for us during my time at Arizona. It was always like the hardest nosed game we'd play. They hit hard, we hit hard. It was going to be a bloodbath. And we're down maybe a touchdown. We're driving down the field. We get to about midfield. Willie throws a long pass for a touchdown. I turn and look, and there's a flag, and they called us for holding. And I'm yelling at the ref, "You are fucking us in the ass." And I'm yelling so loud that it's going into his microphone and booming in the stadium. And he literally had to cover his mic and like had to turn. And I was so fucking pissed.
Did they call the penalty on you or somebody else on the line?
It might have been on me. So that stat might be like I had 2 penalties and like 2,000 plus snaps.
Yeah.
But he called me. I think he called me for holding. And I was like, "You're fucking us in the ass." And it's booming through his microphone and like echoing in the stadium. It was fucking hilarious.
Eben Britton, everybody in Corvallis. Eben Britton.
And then one of my favorite memories was we were playing the Bengals. This was my 3rd year. I had come back from back surgery, and I was starting at left guard, and I loved playing left guard. Like 3 years into my NFL career, I come back from an injury. I come back from back surgery, and they say, "Eb, the guy who's playing right tackle, he's doing a good job. We don't really have a left guard." My O-line coach was like, "Eb, when I was watching you coming out of college, I thought to myself, this dude can be an all-pro guard. I think you'd be really good at it." I thought, yeah, why not? I mean, I'm a great athlete. Put me inside, tighter quarters, use my hands, use my quickness. So I was loving playing left guard, having a dominant season. This was my 3rd year. We're playing the Cincinnati Bengals. I had an epic game. Had a great game. I was blocking the shit out of Geno Atkins, an all-pro D tackle.
Yeah.
I had a couple plays, back-to-back series. I pulled around the line and cut Ray Maluga in half. And Mojo just took one for a touchdown, took one for like a 25-yard gain. Those were 2 of the best plays of my career. I was not ever a good I never really ever felt that comfortable doing cut blocks, and somehow I was in such a flow. I was just so in my game. In those 2 plays, it was effortless, and I just cut this dude in half, like legs went flying up over his head. And we ended up losing the game, actually. And then a week later, I had debilitating back spasms. And it took about another 3 weeks before we realized I had an infection in my disc after the back surgery. And so I would miss the rest of that season with having to get intravenous antibiotics every day.
Wow.
Which was brutal, man. And that, I came back from the ruptured disc and the sciatica after the surgery. Like, felt so good. Felt like I felt like I had gotten my legs back under me, and played for, I had it was 11 weeks after the surgery. So I had like a game or 2 of rest, of recovery, came back, started for 3 or 4 games, and then this infection hit, which was a bacteria that had a very low virulence. It was like basically the same bacteria that causes acne, they said. And it had gotten in there, and it was a slow burn. But 11 weeks after surgery, I was completely debilitated with back spasms, legs going out, couldn't figure out what was going wrong. They took a couple MRIs to figure out that there was this infection in the disc, and a biopsy. That was a fun experience too, having the biopsy, being laid on the table, and they stick a giant needle right into your spine and pull out a piece of tissue. But yeah, so one of my best games followed by another fall. And then, I worked hard to come back, but that last year in Jacksonville was a complete disaster. Had a new head coach. They had sold the team. We had Mike Mularkey. God bless him. But, I had a horrific season. Me and the team, I think we went 2-14. Everybody got fired. I got benched halfway through that year because my body just wasn't ready to be back. And, had the opportunity to find my love for the game again in Chicago. Had one really great season there. My first year in Chicago, played the sixth man, swing tackle, became a monster tight end, which they wrote about in the Chicago Tribune, how the offensive production went up like 20% every time I was in the game, which was cool. And really found my love for football again. Got to play in an incredible city, like probably the best sports city in the world, man. Not going to lie, Chicago. Lance was there. Lance Briggs.
Yeah.
Was just the
yeah,
man.
Julius Peppers on the defense, right?
Julius Peppers, dude. Our team was just unbelievable. We started the year 6-0 and then had some bad injuries and ended up like 8-8. Lost to Green Bay last game of the season for the NFC North title and chance to go to the playoffs. But man, that was a fun team to be a part of. And then the last year in Chicago, the business of football reared its ugly head again, and that coincided with seeing the light at the end of the tunnel of my football career, feeling like I'd given it everything I had, and it was time to move on. And there we
How
go.
hard is it to make that decision after all those years of playing football, all you've put into it? We've talked about just even overcoming the pain to get on the field. What is that realization like when you're really being honest with yourself? It's like, man, I'm done.
Yeah, great question to end on, because I'm gonna roll out of here after this, guys. But
we'll get you back on to talk about Tyson later, okay?
Oh yeah, definitely. Anytime, dude. You guys
and
have
also,
my number.
On top of that, Eben, could you also, because I know you got to go, but Jordan Morgan's going to be the first Arizona offensive lineman drafted since you. So what do you think just about his development and what's next for him? And what advice do you have to offer? Go ahead and answer.
For sure. First things first, end of my career. It was obvious. It was obvious. My heart, I was sitting there in the meeting room in Chicago. It was probably week 14. That season, I had a ruptured appendix, which was another fun one. But I was sitting there watching myself in practice on film, and I thought to myself, it was so clear as day. It was so clear as day. I thought to myself, man, I used to want to kill that guy that I'm going against. And now I got none of that left. Like, I have no desire. I'm like, man, something changed, And it was in that moment I realized, I was like, dude, this is it. This is the end of the line for me, because football is not a game that you can be half in, half out in. You're going to get hurt. You're going to get somebody else hurt. And it's not going to be fun. And I thought to myself, when I had the thought in that meeting room of, wow, how much has changed, how much my mentality has changed, how much I had gone from wanting to devastate people to thinking, that's my friend right there. I don't have any, there's no more rage left to give here. And there's 1,000 places I'd rather be. I knew it was time,
Yeah.
And it was that was a manifestation of how I chose to play the game. I gave it everything I had every day for as long as I could, till the wheels came off, literally many times. The wheels had come off and we'd put them back on. I don't know how many times, and so it was this emotional shift in me of going, my desire for the violence is no longer in me, and it's time to be done. And so, to that extent, I was fortunate in how my end in football came. I think a lot of guys are chasing it for a long time after that. After maybe they're not recognizing that, but for me, it was so clear because I had gone from I was having this whole. It was crazy that moment because it was so 360 degrees. I was thinking to myself, man, I'm in pain from the top of my head to the tips of my toes. Every day I got to wake up and manage this pain with medicine and movement and like I think it's glorious. I'm here killing myself and I think it's glorious. And this coach behind me, he doesn't give a fuck, dude. Like if I walked out of here today, he'd put another guy in my spot. There wouldn't be any like statue for Eb, because I'm fighting through pain. My neck hurts, my hips hurt, like my fucking head hurts. And so it was that complete realization of just, okay, I was seeing things very clearly. And after the season, there were a number of things that happened. I got a handful of calls to come try out. The Bears said they weren't going to sign me back. There was a new head coach there too. That last season was a mess. I'd been a part of a lot of bad football seasons, which was not fun. Losing a lot of football games is hard. That's a hard trip. Hard trip in a football career. I wasn't a part of a lot of winning teams. And so I had a handful of calls, the Falcons, the Bills, and I just thought to myself, man, I can't even bring myself to go to the airport, get on that airplane, take that trip, do that workout, So I started just slowly but surely figuring out what was next for me, which is another podcast.
Yep.
We'll talk about next time. And then for Jordan Morgan, man, like I said in the beginning, dude, enjoy every minute of it. You earned this shit. You earned it, brother. You earned it. You worked your ass off. You're going to have to continue to work your ass off, but take it slow. Take it one day at a time. Take good care of yourself. Become a technician. Be disciplined in your technique. Learn from the older guys. Be humble. Don't be too hard on yourself. Remember, you're a human being. And just enjoy it, dude. Enjoy the ride because so few people get to experience that. I think in the history of the NFL, there's been like 3,000 some guys playing the NFL. It's crazy, And so to have that experience is a once in a lifetime deal and take it slow so that you can soak everything up out of it that you possibly can. Get everything out of it that you possibly can. Learn, enjoy it, have a sense of humor about it. Take good care of yourself. And good luck, man. And proud of you. Proud of you for carrying the number 77. That's the badass's number right there. So
that is a badass's
number.
number.
All right, Eben, we know you got to get out of here, man. So thank you so much for your time. That is Eben Britton, former Arizona and NFL offensive lineman, joining Spears and Ali on our overtime episode. Be sure to follow Eben on Instagram today. Eben, you're the man. Thank you once again. We appreciate it.
You're the man. Thank you, guys. You're the best. I'll see you guys again soon.
Really enjoyed it, man. Thanks for letting me nerd out a little bit.
Absolutely, dude. Thank you.
Yeah.
Take care, Eben.
See you guys.
Sure.
Peace.
It's the best, man.
That was awesome.
He's the best.
That was awesome. I know, and it's I get into those kind of situations where you bring on guests like that. And I'm like, just okay, don't say anything right now.
John Henderson. What was that like?
Oh. Give Justin, Justin's got questions too.
What did those Steelers uniforms back then smell like?
So like the black and gold threads, was it just different?
Did you ever get any of it stuck in your helmet?
Like,
can I have some?
Such a nerd, bro.
I mean, fuck you guys.
But we love you.
But it's, it's just like to me, I didn't get to experience it. That was my dream. I'm just curious as to when you do get to experience it, what's going through your mind and how is that experience for you? And I mean, fuck, man, John Henderson was 6'8", 350 pounds and could run like a 4.940.
And got slapped.
Got slapped before games
to motivate him.
And you're like, hey man, congratulations. You're the 39th pick in the draft. Training camp. You're lining up against John Henderson. You're doing one-on-ones. I mean,
every day.
I mean, aren't you going like, what the fuck am I doing here? I don't care what kind of badass you are, right?
Yeah.
And then you go to Chicago and it's like, okay, cool.
Julius Peppers,
and you're doing one-on-ones. And then you have Freeney and Mathis. I mean, this is amazing.
You know how many Hall of Famers he brought up during this conversation?
I know,
a lot.
Several.
But he played with David Garrard. He played with, I think, Blake Bortles for a year.
Maurice Jones-Drew.
He played with Matt Forte, played with Jay Cutler, Alshon Jeffries, Lance Briggs, Julius Peppers. I wanted to ask him who's the greatest player he ever played with, but sometimes that's not a fair question.
Gronk at the U of A?
Maybe Gronk at the U of A. But Gronk, remember, his senior year was hurt too.
Yeah.
Right? But you know what he said that, and I really wanted to ask him, and this goes with Jordan Morgan, with Jacob Cowing, with Michael Wiley, or any young man who is going to get their name called next week in the draft, or maybe sign an unrestricted free agent contract. Where you go has such an impact on really what your career is going to look like.
Yeah.
It has, I mean, I'm not saying it's everything. I mean, who you are matters more, but we talk about with the NBA too, but like, what if Eben Britton went to the San Francisco 49ers or the Steelers or whatever, and, he's fighting through those injuries in year two that happened right before he got to training camp. What if there was one doctor that said, you know what, Eben, do not fight through this disc problem. We're going to do the surgery right now. You're going to get healthy. Maybe you come back second half of the season. Maybe you just sit this season out. You got a 4-year contract.
Yeah.
So it's just to me, the whole, how the universe works and everything, how they connect. I mean, his dad played college basketball at Jacksonville University, and he gets drafted 39th overall by the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yeah.
That shit like that's crazy.
Oh, we forgot to ask him about champs and getting drafted. And what happened there? Did he say he had like an interesting draft story?
Oh yeah,
Eben Britton. Damn,
dude, we got to do another Eben Britton one, because I mean, you got the champs, the draft story, and then it's like
Mike Tyson.
You did 100 podcasts with Mike Tyson. Like
that was like my go-to COVID podcast during that time.
Yeah.
During the height of the pandemic, I would listen to Hotboxing.
And it's like
while hotboxing.
While hotboxing.
So they just talk about whatever. I mean, Eben Britton is.
They have guests on, and
I've never met him before.
Well, and think about it. Guys who were in combat sports, one individual, one team, football, the ultimate gladiator sport, and boxing.
Yeah.
And think about the trauma that these guys have had to endure. And the common denominator was how much cannabis saved them. Like Mike Tyson talked about, I looked at myself in the mirror and I just saw this vicious animal. Like I almost like couldn't look at myself. And cannabis has like brought him down to a level to where he's more humble, more spiritual, much like Eben Britton.
Well, Big Mike needs to maybe lay off the cannabis a little bit, because I need him to beat the shit out of Jake Paul. I need that monster back just for one night. One night I need that monster back.
Nothing but Red Bull and smelling salts.
Yeah. Dude, I just to see him come out in those black trunks, those black shoes, and just the towel with the hole on it again, just one more time.
Yeah.
I mean, I hope he does well. But yeah, I mean, we got a lot of great things. And he was talking about Brent Brennan, and he knew who Jetfish was the first time he met him. You know what, Brent Brennan, and he loves Mike Stoops, and we made a mistake when we fired him. I agree with him. We made the same mistake with Dick Tomey. You know what Dick Tomey, Mike Stoops, and Brent Brennan all have in common that every other coach that we've hired in that interim is different from? Those are the only 3 guys that Arizona's hired for the football team that came in here and said, we have everything we need to succeed here. Every other guy came in here saying, we need to do more. We need to build our facilities up. We need to do X. We need NIL money. We need this. We need this. We need that. Those 3 guys in particular are the only ones that said, I got everything I need to win here. This is a great place.
Real quick, before we get out of here.
Yeah.
Munchie Madness. It's that time, guys.
Tunadito. Congratulations.
Minidito. It's my little nest, not your little nest.
No, it's Tunadito, and Minadito. It's nuestros miniditos.
It's our little nest.
Yeah.
But yes, after a month long, after the polls that we put out over the last month or so, the champ, the one who stands above the rest, the field of 64 of the best in Tucson restaurants between 4 regions, burgers, wings, Mexican food, and pizza. And Minidito, the great Mexican food place on 4th Avenue, I believe, South 4th Avenue, kind of going towards the south side of Tucson.
They are on the south side of the Tucson Convention Center.
4th and 29th, I believe.
Yes.
No, that's El Minuto.
That's El Minuto.
Mm-hmm.
Man, you need to cut all this because I am fucking going to lose my Tucson card.
But Minidito is the winner. So we got to get the owner of Minidito on. I know they're changing ownership here very soon after like over 5 decades of it being in the family. We gotta talk to the owners. We got to go out to Minidito. We got to get meals together, guys.
Cool.
Chicken topopo salad is the best you ever have.
Presidential
platter, feeling like Bill Clinton.
Yeah, hell yes.
Everything's good, man. Everything's good.
So shout out to Minidito for winning our Munchie Madness Challenge. We'll do it again next year. Can't wait for that. Maybe we'll shake up the regions, maybe shake up the categories a little bit. I don't know, but we had a lot of success. A lot of people voted on this, and we appreciate you guys for doing so.
Over 10,000 votes. Incredible.
Yeah.
And 87% of stats are made up.
20% of the time, that's true.
And a huge thank you once again to Eben Britton, former Wildcat, joining us here on Spears and Ali Overtime. I had to get him on. One, just great dude. I've been trying to get him on Spears and Ali for a while now. I'm glad we were able to make it work out. But Jordan Morgan's going to become the first Arizona offensive lineman drafted into the NFL, and that's going to happen. He may even become a first-round pick.
Since 2009.
Since 2009, when Eben was drafted in the 2nd round by the Jaguars. So I'm like, man, Jordan's going to end this drought. Let's get the guy that was last drafted off Arizona's offensive line. So, man, Eben, thank you once again. We appreciate it, and great conversation. Thank you again. All right, guys. Shall we get out of here?
Yeah, man. I mean, I think we
overstayed our welcome.
We have squeezed this Dito as much as we can get the juice out of it.
Spears and Ali Overtime, presented by Tucson Federal Credit Union, Right Way Heating, Cooling, and Plumbing, and the Volpe team at Nova Home Loans. Subscribe to the Spears and Ali podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. And check out Spears and Ali Overtime on YouTube. Thanks for watching and listening.
Peace.